Personally, we also took a call that we don't want to stay in this big city anymore. We want to break. So we wanted like a base, like even if it's temporary, we wanted a base. And Manali just happened to be that, but it was so far that we never imagined that we'd drive to Manali. So we literally packed our entire life in a car, and we drove on a 10-day trip very gradually across every state in India and reached Manali 10 days later, and there we were, like lock, stock, barrel.
So that the feeling that we were actually uprooting ourselves from the city actually occurred to me when I saw our bed lamp in the car along with the mattress. I was like, oh God, the lamp is actually protruding outside of the car. It's happening.
3, 2, 1. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you have imagined.
And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work.
Courage is not doing things in the absence of fear. Courage is doing things despite the fear.
Growth comes from consistent action.
And you're realizing, hey, I'm not the only one with these problems.
Welcome to the co-founders of Lights Out, Saksham and Adil. Thank you very much for being here. I guess let's get straight into it. First thing I want to know about, and we talked about this maybe for a brief second or two when we caught up on the couch the other day, is that you guys have been on a journey together for quite a while. Can you take us back to the inception of when you all met and when you guys started together? How did that happen?
I've actually done a bunch of podcasts.
There's a long version, there's a short version.
I have never been on the other side, so it's super new that someone's asking a question. That format is very new, but okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a long and a short version.
Yeah, go for it.
So I think we got introduced through a couple of common friends, right? And both of us were in Pune back then. I was in my corporate job, and he had just started up right after college. And it so happened that we met through a common friend, and we decided, okay, let's meet for drinks. And that drinks that started at 5 p.m. almost ended at 5 a.m.
Oh, you're giving the long form.
Yeah, no, just like giving.
Yeah, let's go long. I think the decision's
Go for
made.
it.
We very soon realized that us and the common group of friends that we were together with, we had a lot of common interests: travel, food, work. A lot of things were pretty much aligned, and I was looking for my next gig out of a corporate career, right, to start something of my own. And I think Adil was in a similar space back then. And both of us were very clear that we want to be in the service business, right? And both of us had some sort of an inclination towards just working with brands, interesting concepts that we could sort of build and develop. And one thing led to another, and we started Lights Out back in 2018 as a full stack digital agency, right? And at that time, running a full stack agency was a thing, right? You do everything end to end. As much as we've had our share of highs and lows, I feel we gradually started to realize that both of us are very much inclined to not do everything. Right? Okay. We like our niches, and that's what made us zero down over a period of time. Say in about a couple of years, we started zeroing down on what we really want to do. Had our fair share of ups and downs, clients leaving, clients coming in, right? Those highs when you sign a new contract, and then those lows when someone just like parts ways. Similarly with the team, offices, pretty much everything. And then when COVID hit, that was a wake-up call for us that we said, all right, let's take a hard look at what we really want to do. And I think COVID pushed everyone to the corner in a good and bad way, right? So from a work standpoint, that was our wake-up call, and we said, hey, we're going to eliminate everything as part of what we don't like, including what we're doing in our personal lives, and we'll pursue 100% of what we want to do. And that's why we sort of conceptualized Lights Out as a studio and not as a full stack agency, where we said we'll just go after product design, and that evolved over a period of time. And personally, we also took a call that we don't want to stay in this big city anymore. We want to break. So both of us drove down from Pune all the way to Manali. Beautiful. And stayed there for almost a year. And again, had an inclination to live in the hills, in the mountains. And I feel that experience that we had of living so close to nature was a very life-changing experience. Best 1 year of my life for sure. right? And I think those journeys is what just got us a lot closer professionally, personally, and then we just ended up moving to Bangalore eventually to just sort of pursue what we were doing with Lights Out when sort of things opened up.
Is that the long form?
Certain highlights out of the long form story.
Okay, so what highlights do you think he's missed that you would like to plug the gaps with?
Pretty much covered. COVID was definitely a wake up call for the both of us, because like looking back, it feels like we were on this constant treadmill, moving forward, but in reality, not really moving forward in terms of the service that we were in. And we took a hard look at it in terms of what was working and what was not working, also aligning with the skill sets that both of us have. And we have very complementary skill sets. It doesn't overlap.
Sure.
So that's something that we decided to double on. Product is something that both of us were inclined towards. And therefore, we basically strip away all of the services that we were providing, right from brand identity design to social media marketing to whatnot. It was everything that we were doing, including tech. And that was taking up a lot of our bandwidth. And it was very difficult to build our expertise in one thing.
Sure.
So just business slowing down and also clients going away actually gave us a lot of time to actually take a step back and think what we actually want to double down and what can actually reap the benefits in terms of the amount of time that we spend, spending on it. Because the amount of time was still the same. We were still working our ass off, 15, 16 hours, but we were not able to reap the benefits out of it. So we were just trying to figure out what's wrong with the business model and the service that we're trying to provide.
Sure.
Because the experience levels of a client was still really, really high. Like we were able to build very good relationships with them. But our understanding of what the market needs and will pay for in terms of generating good revenues and good profit margins is something that we were able to figure once we took a step back.
Sure.
And Manali was definitely like a really, really good decision. And it was completely by accident.
Yeah, how did that decision come about?
We were actually supposed to go to Goa because it was very close to
I actually
Pune.
started with searching for homes in Dublin.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We started.
And then
we
scaled
wanted
down a
to
little bit.
we wanted to permanently move to Dublin for some reason.
Everything is shut. It's a new life. We can do this from anywhere.
Right, and start from scratch.
And I remember we also like created an Excel sheet to just figure out the lifestyle expenses and expenses that we need.
And that's when you know it's serious, right? When you
it
create
was
an
serious,
Excel sheet,
very serious.
you know you're serious.
And we're like, Dublin is where we want to be. But I think the challenge at that time was
a lot of restrictions.
Restrictions were there. Visas weren't available. We were getting good homes. It was still super affordable. We had a few friends working for Google who'd gone home. So we're like, we'll sublease their apartments.
Right.
So it had gone to that level.
Yeah.
But of course, then we zeroed down. Okay, what's closer? Let's do something closer. And we're like Goa. Goa mein long leases were a challenge. People weren't willing to give homes or Airbnbs for say 5 months, 6 months, and we're like, every month we can't keep shifting, right? So we wanted like a base, like even if it's temporary, we wanted a base. And Manali just happened to be that, but it was so far that we never imagined that we'd drive to Manali. So we literally packed our entire life in a car and we drove on a 10-day trip very gradually across every state in India and reached Manali 10 days later. And there we were, like lock, stock, barrel.
So that the feeling that we were actually uprooting ourselves from the city actually occurred to me when I saw our bed lamp in the car along with the mattress. I was like, oh God, the lamp is actually protruding outside of the car. It's happening.
And if a 10-day trip doesn't get you guys close together, what will?
Yeah.
So we had already been living together for the last 2 years before pandemic.
I mean, when you start, you're like, hey, as much as both of us had independent houses, we're like, you know what, we'll cut down our expenses. It's easier to stay together. Everything gets shared, right? And would we advocate that as a decision to stay with your co-founder? No.
Oh, definitely not.
Right. But with us, it just gladly worked out.
Please tell us about at least a couple of times where it didn't. Like what didn't work about living together? Why would you not advocate?
Very honestly, there was never a time that it didn't work.
So why we're saying we do not recommend that is because it happened very organically for us that it worked out.
Sure.
But I can see hundreds of reasons as to why it cannot work out.
Actually, I don't know why would I not advocate someone?
I will not, because
He's very instant.
You're
as
just
well.
putting a lot of pressure on your business basis how you guys are in terms of your alignment towards how you want to live your life.
Yeah.
It could be very, very different, right?
Yeah.
I can start questioning you on the basis that, hey, you're not keeping your room clean.
Yeah.
That could be
Or
a
you're
reason
not responsible enough at home.
Yeah,
Sure.
there are so many micro
And
things
then you bring
can
that
actually
into the business or the other way around.
always.
And then
It's
you
a-
want a little bit of foundation or some sort of boundary when you go back home. You don't want to see the same face,
yeah.
right? How do you separate that out?
So were you guys just talking about work all the time?
You don't mind talking about work
Okay.
whenever.
So it was happening, but you're
Yeah.
okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think work for us, so we sometimes carve out time to talk about work on weekends, right? But those are long, distant, vision level conversations, which on a day-to-day basis, you find it very difficult because everyone's in their routine. And now it's to a point that both of us have our own schedules. We would meet either for a breakfast once in the morning or for dinner, but that's it. We don't interact. We don't end up meeting each other in spite of staying in the same house because his cycles and his work life, everything is very different and mine's very different. And weekends we end up chilling together.
So y'all have definitely, obviously, found or fallen into your flow, right? To make it happen.
Somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's challenging. Like, would I do this with anyone else? No. Like, even if that person was a co-founder, I would not do it.
Yeah, moving to Manali with your co-founder
Yeah,
for
like
the year.
it's
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, like first of all, 10 days with this one person in the same car, everywhere you're together, you're also working. It's not only pressurizing but also daunting, like in several ways. And we had our moments of, okay, we need our space now, and we would give that to each other.
Sure.
So I think we've grown over a bunch of those, grown past those bunch of challenges that one would face while staying with someone. And now it's to a point that we're very comfortable in that presence.
And you said earlier that your skills are complementary, they don't overlap.
Yeah.
What I am very curious about whenever there's like a co-founder situation going on is not just the skills, but the mindset pieces, right? So for example, your risk appetites might be different or the same,
Yes.
etc. So
Yeah.
like what's the top thing you guys seem to be in perfect alignment on, and what's the top thing where y'all grapple with, okay, we're on different ends of the spectrum and we've got to come together? Are there things like that?
I mean, what I usually find challenging when we're discussing something is the difference between a long-term plan versus a short-term plan. He would usually look at the practical side of things because we need certain things in place for the business to be running the way it is running or be more stable. I come from a standpoint where I don't look at the practicality side of things the way he can. So that balances it out.
Sure.
I think that is one thing that we keep on, discussing and arguing, if at all. I think everywhere else it overlaps.
Yeah, I think technically our skill sets are very complementary.
Yeah.
He's a lot more ingrained into working on design, whereas I'm a lot more ingrained into working on the business.
Sure.
Right. As much as I do understand design, I'm not a designer, right? By any stretch of skill set or what I can do. So from that standpoint, we don't interfere in each other's areas of work, and we have that trust. Okay, if this is something that he's taken a call on,
Yeah, give him
it
the
is
space.
what it is,
Sure.
right? But I don't see where we grapple. We actually don't. In fact, there are some. Everything that we've put together in this entire business, which is a bootstrapped, very nuanced niche design studio. I don't think either of us would have done anything if either of us wouldn't have been there. So I feel that works out, that camaraderie works out pretty well. If there's something that we're introducing, say as a new service or a new addition, it is because either of us have the skill set or the ability to pull it off.
Nice.
And also, I think it comes from the fact that we've made so many mistakes
Yeah.
in the entire journey that we were talking about before pandemic in the service business that we were running. We know what short-term calls to take and what long-term calls to take. I think that is something that really helps in, decision making. If there is any sort of, I would say, gap in implementation.
Sure.
Yeah.
And talking about decision making, let's go to one of the big decisions you talked about, which is eliminating the stuff you didn't want to do, right? So going from full stack to let's be a studio. I know y'all clarified as well the why, right? Why y'all looked at doing this. what I'm also interested in is understanding a little bit about how you implemented or executed the decision. So once you decided that we've got to eliminate this type of stuff, what were the next steps you took to eliminate? Was it just okay, now fire the clients and change the team or whatever, and then refocus? Was it a gradual thing? How did you go about implementing the decision to eliminate the other stuff?
I think it was a mix of both, but more so the first one. Okay. We decided that this month would be the last one that we would be servicing our current set of clients. Right. And then came a period of 3 months where we did not make any money. And we were almost resetting. It's almost like just, getting back to ground zero. And after having been in business for 2 years, that's struggling. It's a very tough call to make. Yeah. Right? You're like, okay, you know what? Let's give this one more shot. You don't know if it'll work. Add to it COVID. Add to it, we decided to shift our base, right? Yep. Add to it a new team, right? And the new team was essentially just both of us.
Sure.
We just maybe retained a couple of folks from the existing team because we realized that those skill sets would continue to benefit both of us, like them and us. But it was a hard call. So there came a time when we went completely broke, like down to almost $8,000 in our accounts jointly.
Sure.
And we're like, if we don't get this client today,
we're fucked.
It's done.
And this is when we were on our way to Manali.
So we were our first stop
in the fucking car. This is what you're talking about.
This is where and we're still chill about it because we're reaching Udaipur. We've paid for that Airbnb for the next 3 days. But after that, there is no money left. And it came to a point where I'm like, Adhil, we can fuel only till Udaipur. What do we do from here? I don't know.
And he's not even exaggerating this. We only had fuel money.
If the check doesn't get cleared, like we'd closed, but it was a US client and our first US deal. And I'm like, that money is fucking stuck in PayPal.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to take 14 days and I'm haggling with them all through the journey. I'm like, guys, you got to release.
Don't you understand?
We need fuel into an escrow account, so you have the money, but you also don't have the money.
Yeah.
Right, and we were very clear that this is how we want to rebuild, and so we will not take more than what we can work on right now. And we were very, very clear about that one fact. And plus, when you're restarting, it's almost like a new identity. Nobody knows you for what you can do, right? And then somehow this one guy trusted us, and luckily the night we reached Udaipur, the check encashed. And we were
sounding like a fucking movie. Dude.
Yeah, and we're like, wow. The next 6 months are at least sorted, and we will just be able to live through.
Sure.
Everything that we make from here is going to go up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, those decisions, and that's why I was curious because I had to grapple with a similar decision a little while ago, where we had something that was working reasonably well. After a couple of years, you're seeing money in. That uncertainty of will you be able to pay stuff month on month has gone. And then suddenly to go through and make this decision to essentially brutally murder what's been working reasonably well for you for the off chance that something else might be better is very, very hard.
Yeah.
Were you guys, I'm also just curious about the time period from the thought getting into your brains and y'all agreeing that y'all want to eliminate to actually executing executing. Was that sort of like once you decided we go, or was it a let's get perspective from these 300 people and make Excel sheets? And
I think our decisions usually are more around our gut.
Yeah.
And that's very hardwired to our experiences. So we don't find the need to go out and ask people. I think it was an instant call.
Sure.
But the next 3 months were treacherous because I was literally sending 100 cold emails. I'm like, what else can we do? Let's start a podcast. What else can we do? Let's start a newsletter. Okay. I mean, long-term decisions that you have to take today, but right? Like they will gratify eventually. What else do you do? There is no other client that we're working with. Just keep sending random emails, and everyone was rejecting, like shut down. Once one guy after like 16 cold emails in the US is like, all right, show me your price chart. I'm like, wow.
We got to pricing.
Yeah.
And we've got to create a pricing chart.
We got a pricing and we're like, oh, he wants pricing. And we're like, US mein kaise price kare? We priced it according to India.
Yeah.
Right. And then all of those learnings were immense. But of course, you learn very quickly when you know that this is all that there is. So you literally do everything that you can.
Did you find not having the safety net was Do you think that was an element to driving you guys to just go for
having
it?
your back against the wall definitely helps in terms of making a faster decision. But I think the best decision that we made after that point was staying lean. Like we will only do things that both of us can individually execute, and we will not hire anyone until this is stable.
Sure.
So that itself, like that thinking itself led to multiple right decisions that we took. Because I can only do ABC things, he can only do DEF, right? So what can we make out of the recipe that we have
Sure.
to make a business out of it? And then figure. So that is a really good way of narrowing down in terms of, okay, this is the expertise that I have and this is what my clients are going to value me for. And that's something that we continue to do with Sosh as well.
Got it.
So I think that mental model really works for
I
us.
think we've had our backs against the wall a couple of times through the last 6 years. And every single time that's happened, we've come out stronger. So now it's almost like an addiction, I feel.
Yeah.
Waiting to go.
Yeah, waiting to go past. And we're like, you know what? I think let it go down. What's the worst that will happen? We've seen that. At least we will not go down to that level.
Yeah.
So now the risk appetite is much high.
And so is that something you'll go to quite often? The what's the worst that can happen? Is that your way to sort of think through the big decisions and the risks and stuff like that?
Yes and no. Now there's a lot more ownership and responsibility towards like a bunch of folks who are there with us, what we've been doing. We don't want to go 0 to 1 again. But in a scenario where you have to take a call and you're restricting yourself from taking a call because you believe if this doesn't work, you would completely go down. I think that ability to take that decision is now hardwired. Like now we can.
Sure.
We don't fear that. And we've done that a couple of times, right? Like we started Sosh with a very different idea. Did not work, completely pivoted into a very different business model, and we were okay with that. Took a while, but we were okay with that. Lightside was continuing. A lot of things were happening. So now that risk appetite, like you become thick-skinned, I guess.
Yeah.
Also, the impact of failure that has on you gets more cushioned. Like you can get back up.
Yeah, you can.
And you can build a new thing.
And I guess you don't feel as attached to each.
You're attached and
tiny
also
thing.
detached at the same time, because if you're not 100% in it,
Yeah,
you're not gonna.
yeah, it's that weird thing. You've got to give it 100, and then if it doesn't work, you've got to be okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I
That's
think
tough.
the one thing that we don't care about is we're just a lot more shameless in terms of taking decisions. So I feel right now we're like, hey, don't care about what people will think. This is what's right. Let's go for it.
As cliche as that is, it actually works.
Yeah.
I mean, the less embarrassed you are
Yeah.
in terms of taking an action, the faster you can grow.
So I got this question last week where somebody was asking me, because we had this meeting and we took 2 or 3 sort of big decisions in the meeting. And so after, he asked me what's giving you the confidence to sort of make these decisions? And I kept going back to, he kept probing, and I realized it all went back to 6th standard when I got on stage and forgot I was up there for an elocution competition, and I forgot I was the classic, I blanked, went up on
God.
stage, stood on the mic,
Yeah.
blanked.
That's still my greatest fear.
Right? It's fucking terrifying. I don't recommend it. But once I keep going back to, I was so embarrassed, humiliated then. It now, everything else feels like cool. You can sort of deal with it. So it doesn't matter if certain decisions go wrong and you look wrong, because like you said, you feel like this cushion, right?
Yeah.
Because you've experienced it once.
Also, the more you internalize this feeling, the more you dissect into this feeling. Like, what are you embarrassed about, and who are the people you're thinking about
That's the
in
big
your
one.
head?
Yeah.
You make a list out of it. You will realize those people don't even matter. So, what are you actually worried about? So it's usually like this idea or this fear is usually in the dark, and when you actually acknowledge it or write it, whatever your process is, you realize, okay, it's really nothing. It's an imaginary feeling.
Like, who are you scared of?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and you're in reality, the only people that you might have to be answerable to and not scared of is probably your family. Right? And once you get past that, you realize, nobody else really cares as much about us as much as we believe they do.
firstly, this part of the conversation has been so rewarding, not just for me, but a lot of the members in our community are first-time entrepreneurs, bootstrapped. And so I feel like you gain confidence to make bigger decisions and take more risks as you feel more equipped to where you feel like you're equipped in that particular space.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of folks who are listening in who don't feel equipped in business and therefore don't take these risks. But because they're not taking these risks, they're not getting more equipped in business, right? And so it's a spiral sort of going down. So I'm really glad that we talked about this.
Yeah, I think running a business, the first thing you must do is just leave any shame back home. Just be extremely shameless and just walk down that path. You can always come back to where you started.
And it's also like, adding to that, it's also an imposter syndrome that you go through. All of us go through. Like none of us has it figured out, right? You will always feel like an imposter with any new thing that you're doing. And you will always continue to learn. Like I would say yes to, initially when we started out, we said yes to every single project that came our way. Because we wanted to learn. Like as much as we were scared of the imposter syndrome or how you feel about it, because what if my client gets to know that I don't really know how to execute this. But as in, like, if you are curious enough and you're willing to learn, I mean, you would be able to solve for it. It's just a problem that needs to be solved. Right? And the more problems you solve, you will learn how to execute that particular task. So it's not like there are some people who does not feel like an imposter. Everyone feels like an imposter with whatever that they're doing, even if they're like world class at it.
I also believe we often set some level of benchmarks in our head with the best that is out there.
Yeah.
And I feel that's incorrect, right? Because they've had a very different experience, very different journey. Sometimes you make age as a benchmark. Sometimes you make valuation as a benchmark. Sometimes you make family background as a benchmark. Sometimes you make skill set as a benchmark. So everyone's journey is very individual, and I feel if you try and emulate someone's journey, the only thing you should emulate is probably their mindset and not the way they've gone about. Because the way they've gone about, a lot of things would have worked out in very different ways than it could for you. And we've done that. We emulated, a lot of times when you start, you emulate, Airbnb,
So
Brian
many things.
Chesky, right?
Yeah.
This is what they've done. But it's a very different trajectory. It's a very different path. Challenges are very different.
Market is different. Timing is different.
Timing
Everything is different.
Timing is a big
Life
one.
is not about posting on LinkedIn or learning from it. It's just you by yourself in your own journey trying to figure what works for you. Because if it works for you, it works. Like we accepted that this is an annuity lifestyle business for us. We have no ambition of a valuation here.
Sure.
And we're very comfortable in that skin.
Yeah.
So, but it took a while for us to accept it.
Final thing I just want to get into for a couple of minutes, and you mentioned this in passing. You said everybody has their process, right? Whether it's journaling or something else. So I'm curious to understand what each of your processes is to personally process when things are going very well, not very well. Do you all have some rituals you follow? That would really be interesting to know as well.
For me, it's very simple. I need someone to have a conversation with. Usually it's him.
Sure.
So we would either sit in our living room on a Sunday and have a hard conversation, personally or professionally. Or we would go out for dinner and we're like, okay, let's get sushi. And we've had several conversations over sushi where we're like, hey, this is working, this is not working. What do you think? Right? And it could be you're not working.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. It could be either of us telling each other, not happy with the way you're working, what's not right, right? And calling it out. So
sometimes you get in your own way.
Yeah, you get in your own way and you don't realize. So I think we call it out. I mean, for me, I personally don't journal. So I go into my zones of either listening to a podcast or, just overworking because that's my escape. But generally having a conversation, I think works.
Is that the same for you, or do you have something else?
So
as well?
having a conversation definitely helps because there's no one that has so much of context to my lifestyle, what is happening in work, what is happening back at family than him. So if you don't have a co-founder, then obviously you'll have to figure other stuff.
Yeah.
But if you have a co-founder, having that conversation definitely helps, not just you, but also building a a stronger bond. Beyond that, I journal whenever I feel like if there's an urge to actually write my thoughts down. I definitely follow a process where I schedule like a debrief half an hour every single day. So I would plan my day the night before.
Sure.
So my productivity tool is just one, Google Calendar.
Yeah.
If these things...
Thank you.
If there are,
I've been screaming this from the rooftops to everybody. Anyway.
So I would journal on my diary or maybe on Apple Notes if I don't have access to my diary. And I would translate everything back onto my Google Calendar for work, non-work, anything. Like if I have to take my dog for a walk, it's going to be there on my calendar. My haircut tomorrow is there on my calendar.
Hasn't happened in a while though. Dog for a walk.
It's there.
This poor dog. just sitting.
He's still going. He's still going for walks, but he's not taking
it. Off lately, I've not been. But the point is, as soon as I see there's an overwhelming list of tasks that I have to complete in this week, and it's already scheduled for, then I'm supposed to worry about that task at 3 p.m. and not today.
Yeah.
Whenever that task is scheduled for. So that really helps me like get back to the ground. Yeah. Otherwise, there's a lot of, you go into these loops.
I'm totally with you. Yeah. I tell all my friends and family, my life runs on my calendar.
Yeah.
Get on my calendar. I used to also have like blocks for spontaneous fun.
For sure, yeah.
Which was a little bit, maybe a bit extra and excessive. But yeah, I'm definitely with you.
Even if the weekend dinners that he's talking about, if that dinner is completely off schedule, I'm going to send him an invite.
Yeah.
Like Sundays are blocked, Saturdays are sometimes blocked.
Yeah. My wife tells the story to everybody, but my first date with her was actually, I sent her a calendar invite. So I asked her out and then I sent her a calendar invite.
It's a red flag for me. It's a big red flag for me.
Luckily it wasn't for her.
I mean, so context matters. Na?
I know. I have gotten those invites. Can I get your email ID? I'm like, this is one way to get into my emails right now. But I feel like this is like a masterclass in co-foundership. More than anything.
We can do a repurposing, branded masterclass. Not just an episode, masterclass and co-foundership.
I actually have a little bit of OCD with my Google Calendar as well. I don't know if you do that.
What?
I also color code the kind of work that I'm doing.
100%.
There are certain kind of work that will give me some sort of excitement and energy back to me. And there are some energy guzzling work that I schedule accordingly.
Nice. Okay. So I color code. Wow, we're fully nerding out on this calendar. I'm sorry. But I color code by type of work. So not by energy. So I color code by like if there's deep work, if there's meeting, etc.
How does it help? Like
so
it's just a reminder anyway.
No, I know what mode I have to be in at different points in time. So I can, at the start of my day, I can look at my day and go, I am overwhelmingly need to be in this mode today. And so I can wire my brain to make that happen. Or I think I can wire my brain and it feels good. So it's either all placebo or it really helps. But I'm going to believe it.
As long as it works.
Yeah, it works for me.
I will try this. I don't do that. Like I don't go all nerdy with my calendar. Everything's on my calendar for sure. Right? Like including my gym and reminders, everything. Like the Apple ecosystem is so sort of fucking seamless.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't go so nerdy on this.
So speaking about our calendars, I know we have a slot where we need to wrap up this podcast. So to be committed to our times, we'll wrap this up. Thank you so much. We didn't even get a chance to congratulate you guys, not just on Lights Out, but on Sosh and Yola. Absolutely killing it. So congrats, onwards and upwards. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. This was super fun, non-structured.
Yeah, love it, right?
Very unstructured.
We can do a part 2 of this for sure.
Yeah, masterclass in co-foundership. So now we need the course modules.
We'll do a masterclass in content, I feel like.
Good. Yeah, let's do it now. Okay, thanks so much, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. We're Jigsaw Thinking, home of the self-starters. If you're interested in being your own boss, head to jigsawthinking.com or drop us a DM at jigsawthinking on Instagram.